Welcome to Sun Coaches Podcast, Season 9, and we're excited to be joined with, as our title sponsor, scoreboardfundraising.com. If you have any needs for your program, reach out to scoreboardfundraising.com, Mike James at 770-680-3424. They'll take really good care of you. They're taking real good care of us. We're so proud to be on board with them as they are our title sponsor for the next 100 episodes. Next 4 seasons here at Sun Coaches. And today I'm excited to be joined by the head coach at Hampton High School, Coach Chad Ashley. Thanks for being on with me.
Thanks for having me.
Well, Coach comes as a special request, actually, and people ask me how I come up with our guests, and I was like, well, it's a very convoluted formula. I wrote down all the high schools in the state of Georgia on some legal pad by classification, and then I figured out who their head coaches were by classification, and then I would go, all right, 7A, Region 7, and then work my way down and reach out to people. So I was going to get to Coach Ashley eventually, not a problem at all, but several coaches reached out and said, man, you got to get him on. He's a good story. And just talking off air, man, I've enjoyed our time talking. And I thought mistakenly that since you came from North Carolina coaching, that you were from there. But you told me you actually went to Windsor Forest High School in Savannah.
Yes, sir. Grew up home with the sand nets where they eat you alive. I know when Armstrong State College still had a baseball team and was still a college, one of my teammates played there, and he said, man, them guys that came from California and all these other places told him they never would have played outside sports if they'd grown up in Savannah because the gnats eat you alive. And I was like, yeah, at Windsor Forest where the moss hangs, and we had a skint infield, and our practice field for football was a lot of dirt. I was like, we got eaten alive all the time. And skin set us off, whatever, you name it, cherry chapstick, whatever people tried, it don't work. I'm here to tell you because I had all the red dots on me every time I went home.
I remember a couple of years back, we interviewed, it was about 10 years ago maybe, we interviewed up in Lafayette with a buddy of mine, Coach Fisher, and we asked my son at the time, he was 8, 9, something like that. We're like, what do you think about going up there? He said, Daddy, do they have gnats? Because we were in Early County at the time, and we said, no, baby, they don't have gnats up there. He goes, all right, I'm in. Let's go.
I'm with him.
Yeah, you got, all the tricks we do, cut a hole in the bottom of your shorts so that gnats at least wouldn't be in your face. They'd go somewhere else. And what's another one? Dryer sheets up in your hat. That don't work. But anyway, you grew up there and you played multiple sports. You had an opportunity to play college ball.
I did. I was very fortunate. I tell people all the time, I took a different path out of my own doing. I like to use myself as an example and not do at times. We had a very good baseball team in high school. Football, not so much. We had a lot of talent, but we weren't great on the field. And this was back when Benedictine and Calvary and all those schools weren't very good like they are now. But I had a chance to go to Middle Georgia College to play football. They were just starting a program, but I also had a chance to play baseball. And allegedly, I use allegedly strong. There was scouts at our baseball games and thought I was a very good defensive catcher, one of the better ones he had seen in his career scouting. And I was a pretty good hitter too, but I was definitely better behind the plate. And I was like, you know what? I signed to go to Middle Georgia because I didn't take care of that geometry class you were supposed to take care of in high school. And I got in trouble, and I'm at graduate and stuff. But I was going to have to go to JUCO because of that. And then all of a sudden, Andrew Junior College, I never heard of before. I was like, Cuthbert, Georgia, where in the world is that? They came along as well, and I had to make a decision. I was like, man, and this is before you think about chasing scholarships and stuff. I just played because I love playing ball. I was like, you know what? I think I can do this baseball thing. I might have a chance. So I chose to go to Andrew Junior College and play baseball, and no stoplights in the town. It's a very interesting place. And then Eufaula, Alabama is right there next to you, and played there for about a year and a half. And believe it or not, we had a catcher that was in front of me. He was pretty dang good. And we were not great as a whole, but we had some good players. And then going to my second year, man, the coach wanted me to lose all this weight because I was about 6'1", 1.5, and about 225, 30 pounds because, I was getting ready to play, hopefully, linebacker. And so I lost all the weight, and man, I felt like I lost all my power because I used to be able to drop some bombs here and there. But then I steadily just, I did whatever I needed to do to play, and eventually got in the lineup and would have been our lead returning hitter coming back. And it wasn't nothing impressive. Hitting 250, that's nothing to write home about, but all that came late because I got a lot better. I just hit against Kennesaw State back when they were Division II back then. There were some good JUCOs we played, TCC, all that stuff. So I enjoyed the experience. It was a great learning experience, but that football bug stuck in me and came calling. The problem is, and people, I hope people listen, don't do what I did. When you decide to ride along with people who play mailbox baseball and you get caught, those are felonies. And when you get charged with 300 of them, that is a problem. That is a problem in any state. So all of a sudden, I became a very untouchable fella because in high school, Georgia had interest in me, and so did Clemson, but they were not what they are now. Southern Miss was actually the best school who was after me. But the thing that everybody didn't know, where am I be a linebacker or am I going to be a fullback? I'm like, kids, they don't even know what a fullback is. And I love playing fullback because I love hitting people. Needless to say, when I wanted to go back to football, nobody knew. I can't take that phone call, They couldn't even see my name like you can today on you. They didn't want that phone call. They just might have seen that 912 area code or something like that. But this case against us, and the sad part is my uncle, he retired as a captain. Savannah, Chatham County, they combined, at some point. But he retired as a captain in the police force in Savannah, and eventually wound up being a Thunderbolt as chief there. And, he's like, when all this went down, he's like, what the world are you doing to yourself? And I was like, I don't know, man. I said, honestly, I didn't do most of the work. I was just driving. But we got in trouble, as we should have, and got caught. And then we got charged for stuff we didn't do. And I was the last one they came to get in the jail cell. And I wasn't talking to nobody. I was quiet. And then they started saying, well, your buddies all said this, this, and this. I'm like, oh my gosh. Because, I said, yeah, I did whatever you said, but I didn't do this. It was interesting, and just how long this process. And of course, we were on the news, and it was a big deal, and it was embarrassing. It was the most, I used to get whooped back in the day, like most people that growing up. But when I saw the look on my father's face, I don't know if I've ever been more disappointed myself because I've never seen him so disappointed. Me, he expected more, and he was in disbelief. I wish he'd have took that belt to me 5 days a week to see that look. And it took a long time to get out of that legal trouble. And when you got felonies against you, you can't do a whole lot. But eventually, all that got reduced to a misdemeanor, and then taken a sponge because I did my community service down there in Savannah, where people want to know what it smells like when you flush the commode when you do number 2. I can tell you because I was down there working in it. You can't get that smell out your nose, not even 30 plus years later. So it was a learning experience for me. But and along come to school, took a chance on me. I was kind of done with the whole baseball thing. Me and the head coach there, I never believed in quitting anything in my life. But we just, there was a lot of friction between us. And I was like, I understand it, man. I've done everything I asked. I started lifting weights again on my own, and trying to put weight back on. I went to, nobody would take a chance, and I went to a little NAIA school called Campbellsville University. I never heard of NAIA. I didn't know what that was or existed. I met the head coach. He said, hey, man, I know you hadn't played. Back then, you didn't see film like you do now because my dad actually recorded my games on a VCR. So I get better myself. And he's like, but we'll take a chance on you, but you're not going to play your first year here. You got too much stuff going on. If you get in, and you got to get back and all that stuff. And I understand. So, and I went and visited Georgia, and I went and visited most schools. And my brother was mad at me for not going to Georgia and trying to walk on. But at that point, there were some really good dudes at Georgia Georgia wasn't, what they are now, but they couldn't get on the field. I was like, man, let me just go to school, small size classroom for me. The first year I might have to pay, but we'll see what happens. And this is a different NAIA than people know today. A bunch of outlaws back when I went. So went up there, and lo and behold, I was like, hold on, all these guys came from Division I schools, and these are Prop 48 kids, and hold on. This guy was on the basketball team at Memphis State back then. And it was very interesting, eye-opening experience because I was thinking I was just going to go up there and be a dude. I was in for a rude awakening because I was like, these guys can play. So that's what I did. I went up there, and first ever rep, taking linebacker, I was on my back looking up at this guy. I said, hold on, what just happened? Who did that? And then I looked, and it was a slot receiver. And I was, you got to be kidding me. That happened to me by slot receiver, but it happened so fast. And I just kind of laughed, and I was like, okay. Well, you want to play college football, here it is. And, anyway, all the legal stuff got taken care of. Best decision I made because the head coach was a gentleman who believed in second chances. He was a recovering alcoholic. He evidently wasn't a good dude for a long time, and he became a different person. It was Christian school, so we had Bible stuff, and that was definitely preached to us. I mean, I always had a relationship with the Lord, but I always say, I hate it when they say that I found Jesus because like Forrest said, I didn't know he was lost. I was the one lost. But it was great. Just he made me laugh. I mean, he would talk to us during team stuff, and his teeth would fly out of his mouth, so I catch him and give back to him. you know, he's he was just the funniest character to me, even in team meetings and stuff. But he took a chance, and that first year I did sit. I had to put the weight back on, and I wasn't happy about it. I never sat before. I've never not played. And as soon as that season was over, you meet with coaches. He says, "Son, we're gonna give you this much money scholarship, academics. You'll be taken care of, and you're gonna be starting next year at outside linebacker." I said, "Oh, yes, sir." And that's what I started the next 2 years, and had some accommodations like stuff to come playing, and just really enjoyed the experience there. And it was great from a academic standpoint too, because it was small class sizes. And I got a double major in exercise science and health, and thought I was going to go be a doctor. I decided to go into a lucrative field of teaching, but it was a great experience for me to go there. And I tell people all the time, man, I played against dudes, guys who played in the NFL. I was fortunate enough to get an opportunity to work out for NFL teams as well, because I could run a little bit back then, at my size. But this is a different game of football now. I'd have to lose weight, and these kids don't even know what 3 days are like. I said, y'all think we didn't go through stuff? I was like, man, by Wednesday or Thursday during our first week of 3 days, we didn't know what day it was. All you knew is you were just going like robots where you had to get to next. And I was like, and we hit every day. So just, man, it was a blessing to be there and graduate from there. And then I came back home to Savannah, and because I wanted to go to medical school, but I still had to take care of some courses, the microbiologies, organic chemistries, all the fun stuff. And then I got into, I said, you know what? I wouldn't mind helping coach. So I went into Windsor Forest, my alma mater, and helped Max Dallas, who's his son, Georgia Southern. And talk about another character. He was in the 70s by then. He had retired from Savannah Country Day. I didn't realize he was the head coach at Griffin and Coach Willie Galt. He would talk about Bill Stanfield and all these guys, and it was great to hear stories. And man, the stuff, it changed so much since I graduated 5 years before, because all of a sudden, you had like 30 kids on a football team, period. We didn't have a JV. The team hadn't won in 2 or 3 years. I couldn't believe it. Baseball team was awful now. And the original head coach was still there as a baseball coach, Coach Hardy, James B. Hardy, or Buddy Hardy, as people knew him. And it was just a learning experience from him. A guy who's been doing it for years and what he wanted done. And man, we're out there doing bull nurse. He's calling a bunch of yellow belly cowards and piss ants. And I try not to laugh because he wanted them to be tough. And I'll say this, they got better and they were tough, but it's hard. I was coaching linebackers, and I was helping running backs. But I'll say this, it's hard to win when you got a 148-pound linebacker out there playing against Camden County and those folks. But they were great kids, and it was a good experience for me, so much so that I decided to stop trying to go be a doctor. And I said, you know what? I think I want to be a teacher and coach. I went back, back then you actually had to get your teaching certification stuff. So I did the praxis 1, the praxis 2, because you had to have that before you could student teach. And then, like the 8 or 9 weeks we had to do, which is like student teaching itself. And I just fell in love with it and decided that's what I want to do. And obviously I was called to do this because what human in the right mind would go into teaching at the time. And by that time, I was getting ready to start, and I was dating a girl. As you know how these stories go. I was dating a girl, and she wasn't from Savannah. She was from Kentucky, where I went to school, because that's where Campbell's was at. And she was in North Carolina, and one was in North Carolina. And we decided it'd be a whole lot easier for me to move, because I was a teacher. And even though I was a PE certified teacher, they didn't have any spots available. It would be easier for me to move up there. And she was a personal trainer. So I moved, got a job at a small little 1A school, and didn't realize we were pretty good in football. We're pretty good in everything. They didn't have a baseball spot available, so I coached softball. And sure, all because of me, right? We won the state championship. Go. Who would believe it? But them girls are that good. We won the state championship in softball. So it was, I tell people that was the longest year of my life. Didn't know softball parents were that bad. Thank God I was just an assistant. And then coached football there for a guy named Gary Bishop. And we were pretty good. My second year, he was going to make me a defense coordinator. But thank God that didn't happen because I was not ready to be a coordinator. But a job came available at a school called New Hanover High School in Wilmington because North Brunswick was on the outskirts. There's a little bridge you go when you go into New Hanover County or Wilmington. And the battleship is on the left. Well, there before you get there in Leland, Georgia, and Leland, North Carolina. And I think they're like a 3 or 4A school now. I went over there because the principal was from Texas. He knew about football, how important sports were. He had a PE position available, which is the biggest thing. That's the biggest reason I went over there. So I went over there, and I tell people all the time. So we had 8 or 9 PE teachers at a school in North Carolina. That ain't normal. I said, but our principal from Texas, he wanted to win. Went over there and worked for a guy by the name of Earl Smith. He's in the Hall of Fame there. I didn't get to work for him long because his wife was a pharmaceutical high-up person, and they moved to Wilmington. That was going to be their last move and dream home when he retired. But I guess some didn't work out. Anyway, he was only there a couple of years and went back to Raleigh. And then eventually he came back to Hanover after I had left and won a state championship there as a retired person. I learned so much from him about discipline and the way it's got to be and how structured and organized you better be. And he was great about all that stuff. But just, to the point, he was also the AD as well. And I didn't want no part of that, seeing what he'd do with that. But you talking about, every day. He didn't just have it planned. You weren't going, I've been in practices where period 12 lasted 35 minutes. Oh, no. It was going to be a certain way. And he was great about that. It really was. I love the military part, like the sternness, the hardness of it, the discipline part of it, because I've always been that way. But the piece of it that I missed was the relationship piece that I had to get better at. And when he left, a guy by the name of John Fitz, who was the defense coordinator and the weight room guy, took over. And I was really starting to learn a lot about weight room. And he was big on the Bulgarians back then because they were the strongest in the world. And they probably still are. And just how they train and how we train our kids and the summer stuff we did with our kids. We had an interesting setup. We were an inner city school, and I tell people this all the time. It's changed since I've left, but we had a lot of so-called bloods at our school. We had bad kids. I never had an issue with kids, but we had 8 or 7 or 8 SROs at times on campus. This is before they became prevalent they are now. We were our downtown school. We were one of the oldest schools in the state. I think Trot Nixon, I know Trot Nixon went there because his son's supposed to play there too. He played for the Red Sox and won a World Series. Roman Gabriel played there, Sonny Jurgensen, Kenny Gaddison, Haji Crumpler. So there's some names there that have been at school. So our campus on one side, you had one main gym, one wing, and you'd walk across the overpass. We call it the catwalk to get across to the other side where the weight room set completely apart. And you had the science labs and stuff. So it was a split campus. And then to get to our field house, you had to walk 3 blocks, in the neighborhood. And you didn't know what might be going on at times in that neighborhood. There could be a pit bull on the loose. There's been gunshots gone off several times, while we're practicing or whatever. But to get to our field house, that's how you had to do it. And but there was a pride. There was a corner store there. We never had any issues with anybody. In the 10 years I was there, nobody ever messed with my vehicles. Kids stuff because they appreciated what we were trying to do for the kids. But we've had several drunks walk across the practice field while practicing. The gunshots gone off, fights have broken out. The illegal gambling was going on in that store. But our kids went and got stuff from there all the time because they had to walk down there and we had to get ready to practice. So it was a interesting setup to everything. But John Fitz came in and he became the head coach. I think he was head coach for 3 years, and I was getting ready to leave and come back to Georgia. It didn't work out with the girl I was with, but I was like, well, let me get back home because that's what home is. Earl Etheridge, who is still doing stuff in Georgia. My dad was pretty good friends with him. He actually taught my brother at Beach High, and my dad knew him from umpire. And he's like, well, let me help him get back. He was talking to Coach Hunter and this stuff, and I was getting ready to come back, and a guy by the name of Kevin Motsinger comes in, which if you want somebody who can make everybody laugh, that guy is your man. And he's been a very successful coach. My gosh, he'll have everybody cracking up. But he came in, he was coming from a small school in North Carolina. He'd grown up in a small place in North Carolina. but he had actually been at Hoover High School and worked for Rush Probst the very first 2 years Rush got to Hoover. And he's like, Coach, he's like, when he came in after talking to us, I said, I think I need to stick around. I think this guy has it. He knows he's gonna grow me and get me better. And like just Kevin is like 6'3". He was 240 when he first got to Hoover. He said when the football season began, he was about 180. He said my parents thought I had AIDS or cancer because he's like the way Rush worked him there. But he was just man, he was great to be with because really he really helped grow me in the area which I struggled, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I was hard nosed, the kids gonna work. I mean, I loved the kids, I gave them tough love too much. So he pulled me aside and my evaluation said, you got to get better relationship piece. Thank God he did this. And I ran the weight room for him too. After that, man, is when my career really took off because that old saying, the kids got no care. I did care. I just didn't display it like I should have towards them. It was always work, 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 work. I got to get them better. Got to get them better. So I really focused and honed on that. And that's when my development took place after because I was coaching D line there for longest. And then after 1 year with him, he made me the JV defense coordinator and then he promoted me. And I was like, you sure? Because I mean, crap. I knew about the front stuff, but I hadn't really learned about the secondary stuff. And thankfully, he coached me up. And I was a coordinator there from that point on. And, when he got there, we weren't very good and we weren't very strong. And by the time we all left, I mean, I think 4 years after he got there, we were playing to go to state championship because our kids had bought into it. And, it was a good place to learn and grow. But I tell people all the time, my last year there, we had a lot of injuries. Somehow we made it, lost a team that lost the state champions. Man, our free safety got charged with murder during the season. So I was like week 4. And we won that game, but it was like, gosh, man, is it time for me to leave? This is happening way too often. Not kids getting charged with murder. I tell them, now look, he didn't do it. But he was a great kid. Like I tell people all the time, if my kids today grow up and behave the way he did in the classroom, his work ethic, everything else, they'd be doing great because he was that kind of kid. Wrong place, wrong time. Type deal, and he wasn't gonna snitch on nobody. That wasn't gonna happen. And in his story, he's like, "Coach, I ain't gonna believe we was in here." You start naming off the kids sitting there, at former students there. I was teaching. I was like, "Oh, I believe they're in there." And a lot of them played football, and most of them did last but a year because they weren't going to conform to how it's going to be. But it was at that point I was like, I think 10 years is long enough. It might be time to leave. And I remember Tommy Knotts, who's the head coach of Dutch Fort, he said something when he was at Independence, like 10 years, probably about as long as you need to be somewhere, and then maybe have a little change. And really the head coach had to push me on it because I was happy. I didn't really want to leave to pursue a head coaching position because I wasn't in a hurry like a lot of coaches are to get a title or anything like that. I was running the weight room. I was, you know, doing defense and the head coach. Unfortunately, during that time there, we found out he had Crohn's. A lot of he had cancer the way he was losing weight. So there was times I had to help structure and run all the practices and stuff like that. So it was a great learning experience. And man, I give him all the credit. Tony, he's my mentor. I love him. He's as tough as they come, as hard nosed as they come, but he'll also tell you every time we talk, we usually try to talk once, twice a week before we leave the phone. He's like, I love you, man. And he's just the greatest person in the world. Man, he is one of the funniest individuals. And I wouldn't be where I am without him, or without question. And I'm so grateful for that. But then after New Hanover, we got my first head coaching job at a school called White Oak High School in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Military place. Everybody knows anything about the Marines. That's Camp Lejeune. And you may have a kid one day, he may be gone next because they moved or whatever. But the school I was at wasn't very good. I knew that going in. I wish I'd had the JV film before I took the job. I wouldn't have taken the job. Yeah. I was like, I was looking at this is back before you get film like this. We're still doing DVDs. And I saw the varsity film. I was like, these guys look pretty good. I think. And I was too, I got to the point of arrogance where I was like, crap, what we doing in the weight room right here? We going to get these kids strong. We going to turn around. And I would go and tell kids like, look, with or without you, we going to be good. Stuff, arrogant stuff like the guy has a way of humbling you. But I would tell that. But I wanted that mindset for them because they hadn't been good. They didn't have that belief. And I get there and I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a long turn right here after I saw what was going in the weight room and just the kids and stuff. But the first year was awful. I think we did win a game and won, but it was rough. The second year was way different. We were one game from making the playoffs. We beat a team that the school hadn't beaten 20 years. They are state runner up in 2A because we're a 3A school. We should have beat a team we hadn't never beat in school history. They never up us 35-0 year 4. And lost by 2. So you can see the growth, development. The kids were excited for the next year coming up. And lo and behold, I get a call. Would you have an interest in applying for a job in Hampton, Georgia? I said, where in the world is Hampton, Georgia? Because I didn't follow racing. And they told me, I was like, well, my family, at this point, my dad was still alive. They live in Georgia. They're still in Savannah. Brother was in Georgia. So maybe it's time to get back. So I put my information in, so see what will happen. I guess they were impressed enough or foolish enough to take a chance on me on a brand new school opening. And what sold me was it was a new school. You got a chance to kind of set your own culture and everything in place. And I thought we were going to be playing the JV schedule my first year. Lo and behold, I was surprised after I took the job and had resigned at what happened, because they did allow us to come here and have spring football. But I think we only had like 25, 30 kids show up. And I was like, well, who's going to play quarterback? I expect at least see 20 hands go. Now one hand went up. I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be rough. And the one young man who wound up playing quarterback for us that year is actually now a 2024 silver medalist in the 110 hurdles, Dana Roberts. And his dad is the head coach at Root Park for track and field stretch. But it was at that point I was like, okay, this is going to be a little bit challenge. And again, I thought we were playing a JV schedule in the non-region. Yeah, I thought wrong. That's what I get for thinking. Maybe I should have talked to somebody and confirmed and make sure. But man, what an eye-opening experience it
I
was.
bet. Well, coach, hold on just a second. Okay, coaches, if your team needs to raise money, check out Scoreboard Fundraising. In the past year, they've helped more than 1,000 teams across the Southeast run simple, effective fundraisers from popcorn to online donations. Call Mike James at 770-680-3424 or visit scoreboardfundraising.com. A lot of teams I know are using them, like Coach here. He says they do a great job. Make sure you reach out with them. A lot of the guys that work for them or ex-coaches, they know what we go through. They know how we do it. Again, that's Mike James at 770-680-3424 with scoreboardfundraising.com. So, Coach, you get to Hampton, you get to open a brand new school, and you have the luxury of having already been a head coach before, but this is a whole new set of things going on. Like you said, you thought you were going to play a JV schedule, and you weren't.
Yes, we opened up with Sandy Creek, the number 3 team in St. George. I said, hold on, what? Yeah,
Who made this schedule?
yeah, and then we had Griffin coming in 2 weeks later, who were coming off state championship. So,
Mm.
and my concern was the safety. I'll be honest with you, my concern was safety of the kids, because our kids were not big, they were small, they were weak, they were not most athletic. And people laugh at me when I tell them our first year. I'm like, if you've ever been on a game field before, a lot of coaches don't want you, ADs don't want you out there practicing on it too much because you'll tear up the game field. It's because we had grass. I said, not us that year. We practiced on that thing every day, and the grass looked the same. There wasn't one spot. I said, what's that tell you about how small we were? I said, we didn't create a divot. And people laughed. I said, I'm being dead serious with y'all. Because with the way we opened, we didn't have a practice field. So in the middle school, they played 7th, 8th grade games, and they alternated weeks. Or Tuesday or Wednesday, we wouldn't have a place to go. If the volleyball team was in the gym, there were many times we practiced in the parking lot, and people were like, you did what? I was like, that's the only place we had to go. We had to practice in the parking lot. We knew that it was going to be rough, especially when we found out that. I remember Coach Walker playing at Sandy Creek. He said, who'd you make mad to get y'all this schedule and not a JV? He's like, Coach, I hope I don't offend you, but I brought my freshmen. I said, no, you can start them out in the game right there.
That'd be great.
And I tell people this, we've all seen these movies where, you see football players and they're hitting guys and they go flying. I was like, that's really what the first play looked like. They handed off to a running back who was going somewhere. And it literally looked like a movie. They were just knocking, flying left and right. I was like, the kid didn't have to make nobody miss because we were being knocked sideways. And he scored a touchdown. The second play they had the ball, they scored a touchdown too, through a deep pass. Somehow we scored late in the fourth quarter. And people, my right tackle, this is how small we were, because I have corners that are bigger than my linemen. Our center was a sophomore, great kid, still keeping contact. He was 145, 50 pounds. And my right tackle was 140, 145. And that's the best we had. like we just weren't big, and we're trying to play Sandy Creek, and they got 2 Division I defensive ends. Back then, we were just trying to run option because really, what do you run when when you're like that? Maybe we can read them. So we try to run, triple option, running inside veer, right tackle comes off the field, and he's crying. And he tells my O-line coach, "Man, what's wrong? What's going on? You okay?" He's like, "No." He's like, "Coach, he won't let me get in my man." He's like, "What are you talking about?" The end was compressing, squeezing him so hard he couldn't get to the linebacker. And he was, he just weren't fast enough. He was weak, and he was just he literally was throwing him on our center. He's like, "He ain't supposed to let you get up there." And he was upset about that. I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's gonna be a long night." Which we already knew that, but they were great kids, man. They worked hard. That game, we only dressed 18 kids, and people go, "What?" And thankfully, nobody got hurt by the grace of God. And the reason we did that because when I got to Hampton, these kids thought that coming to practice and lifting weights was an option. I said, "No, that's not how it's going to be here." So they thought I was playing. I said, "If y'all come to games, you sit up in the stands and pay for a ticket because you ain't going to play here." So that was one of the things we had to get fixed. We drew from Luella, but obviously anybody that could play at Luella, probably say Luella High School. Yeah, so there were some things we had to go through and change. We had to lift in the mornings because we didn't have enough to fill weight training classes back then. So they all came early in the mornings. We picked them up as coaches. And, it was exhausting for us. It was to the point where, kids had to learn how we're going to squat, how we're going to do things. I remember one week, I think we squatted 4 days in a row. Guess they didn't get it right the first time or the second time or the third. Because I was like, well, we ain't going to win out there on Friday nights, but we're going to win in this weight room and figure it out. The discipline part of how it's going to be. We got better, although you couldn't tell because we were just outclassed. That
Well,
first year,
fast forward to what are you, 8 you've been there 9 years now?
I've been here since school opened, so opened 2014.
So 12 years.
Yes, sir.
And I imagine it's a little bit different now than it was 12 years ago.
Thank God. And to give her credit, like the second year was much better, but we were still outclassed. We won our first game, but we had closed that gap. And then year 3 and 4, I thought we were going to be back in 4A because our enrollment wasn't very high, and our former principal bumped us to 5A because he said for transportation. And we got into a pretty heated argument over the fact that I said, "This is like killing the program. We're starting all over again. We have no business playing Stockbridge and Dutchtown. These guys, what are we doing?" And I'm surprised. People always say, "What made you stay?" I was like, "Man, I just couldn't quit on the kids. I'm not a quitter, and it wasn't their fault. Like they didn't do anything wrong to make this happen." And so he left, and yeah, it was rough. I felt like had we been 4A, that year 4 team was pretty dang good as a 4A team. And as a 5A team, we competed. My gosh, they competed, really did, because Stockbridge was 50-0 year 3 at halftime. Triple option team when Coach Witt was being nice to us too. And the second year there, we lost 35-0, but we really closed that gap. But we had no business playing them. I mean, we got kids going both ways. Most teams we play they're not doing that. But we didn't have a choice, and we just didn't have the feeder program yet. It was a struggle, but then we went back down to 4A. Thank God. And believe it or not, even now, we only have 1,100 kids in school, and they're projecting us at 990 next year, but we're going to be 4A. And we played up classification this year. But it was disheartening because that time that your schools were paying for your own transportation in Henry County. So our schools had to fit the bill for buses and all that stuff. And I was like, "Man, y'all are just killing these kids." I just couldn't leave. I can't explain it to people. I was like, if I was supposed to be gone, I guess God would have moved me. I was here, and thankfully the administration were patient too, because as we all know in today's world, I'd have been fired a long time ago. It's all my fault, which, I am the head coach, so it's my fault. There were some circumstances in play as well that and no fault of anybody. It's just the way it was. We didn't quite have time to compete with those folks. The next couple of years, we were one game away from making the playoffs, but you could tell our kids had not been in that situation before to play some of these close games. We were getting beat down pretty good, and we didn't handle the pressure very well, I thought. But next year, 2019, we did. We beat some teams that maybe we shouldn't have beat. I know Coach Laws, he was at Salem then, and he's like, "Coach," he's like, he always praised us, praised me and our staff, and thought we got most of our kids. Sure enough, we finally made the playoffs and got to meet Perry. Yeah, but hey, it was a great experience for our kids. And that was the year my father passed. Man, lo and behold, we got Perry to play in the playoffs. Raymond Gabriel was the head official. I said, "Man, I know this name." Sure enough, it was a guy, he used to run Ambuck Park or Daffin Park down there in Savannah. And he used to run it in the summer. And my dad used to umpire. And that's how I knew him. and we knew each other, and it was like, what a cool thing. My dad passed, September 30th, and here we're in the playoffs. I get to meet somebody that knew my dad pretty well. It was a cool deal. It really was. And it wasn't cool how the game wound up going, you know, but it was cool for the kids. And then, of course, as you know, COVID hit. And when COVID hit, it was like filling the JV team again. How we won 3 games that year, I don't know, because we were operating with a JV team, and I had some, I won't say pushback, but had some questioning because in North Carolina we always believed that how do you get better? We got to play better kids. If you or better teams, if you lose, that's okay because we're getting ready for their North Carolina's conferences in Georgia's region. We're getting ready for conference play and for playoffs because we always knew we were going to playoffs because we were pretty good. Well, that's my mentality I had here. Unfortunately, that wasn't our kids' mentalities. They would rather play somebody and beat them by 100 than play somebody good and possibly lose. So we were trying to shift that mentality. Even when I got the job, I had a parent tell me my first year, you act like you're trying to be like Stockbridge with the schedule I had. I was like, I'm trying to be better than Stockbridge. We got a long way to go. But the shift had to come from everybody. So I scheduled Marist and Perry following 2-year cycle. And that Marist is the team that won the state championship. And I'm out there essentially with like a JV team. Again, it was rough. The second year we played them much better, but that first year was rough. But after that first year and the COVID and all the stuff everybody dealt with, we all know. We played Trinity Christian that year because we actually didn't get to play Perry in that cycle because we had COVID, they had COVID. We played Trinity Christian, and they won a state championship the following year. So it was a lot of, we thought we'd get there, we'd get ready to turn that corner and really grow the program, and bam, COVID hits. And we kind of fall off. But then, as you know, we've made a comeback since. And the last few years have been pretty good for the most part. We're trying to take that next step. We've been to playoffs, trying to actually win a playoff game. And last 2 years, we've had some forfeits for people in our region. So we've been 8-3 last 2 years. Been outmatched in the playoffs, quite honestly. I know we played that East Side team. I felt like we were playing junior college because they were so big and so good. And this past year we played Cal, and my gosh, they had some dudes, of course. And I thought our kids really competed with them. For a while, we scored a touchdown right before half. It's 21-14, but unfortunately got called back. And and then executed block punt stuff like that. But you can see the growth in the program. We've had kids sign smaller schools, but they signed. We had a kid. He went to. We had one going to Air Force. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, but he's at Benedict. We had a kid sign this year. He's going to Chattanooga. Most people are aware of he's now a 5-star kid. He's a safety and wide receiver, and he's supposed to be going to A&M to be a safety. And he's a better kid than he is a football player. I still say that he might be a better receiver than he is a safety. He's considered number one safety in the country. Oh, he's a joy to coach. And, it's a wonder we've kept him here at Hampton because we're in the metro area. We're in the South Metro. You know how it is around here with all these kids that's been going all over the place, but he is a loyal kid. And I appreciate that because I tell people all the time, when he was a freshman here before everybody knew how good he was going to be, nobody was knocking his door down. But then all of a sudden, after a couple of years of development of his part, and of course we do it too, here comes everybody. But he didn't take the bait, and he stuck with us. Thankfully, because he's a really good ball player.
Well, Coach, you've spent the last 20 years, 25 years plus. You're an old head now. You spent all this time pouring into kids and you built this program up at Hampton. Excited to see you guys make the next step. And once you got the relationship piece in place and realized that it's more about the kids than it is about us, it sounds like that's really made it jump off. And I sure do appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us.
I appreciate you having me, and I'm just grateful for all you do. And I think I told you this beforehand, man. I really enjoy listening to your podcast and all the other coaching stories because it's just delight to see where people come from, how they get to this point.
Thanks, Coach. I sure do appreciate it.
And thank you.